from the last meeting. Kind of compressed. The reason that I'm putting these up because we had the approval of the $24,000 as an umbrella amount of money that could be used to improve the lab facilities. So this was approved unanimously, and I think that since it was reflected in the minutes, I think we should take a look at that and close the book on this issue by hopefully approving the minutes. So, anyone want to move to accept the minutes?
I'll make a motion.
Right. Steve Klein, and we have, who's back there?
Walter.
Walter. Okay, so we have all in favor of approving the minutes?
Aye.
Opposed? Good. That's the last formalization to make sure that we have the documentation for that expenditure. Here's some things that I'd like to report to you. We have made some progress on this project to improve the lab facilities. Shelley Goldberg and a group of 5 or 6 other people have been working on this multiple times. So Shelley, a quick update, please.
The podium mic.
So this is a unit that we're currently testing. Computers are getting smaller and smaller these days. This is what's known as a mini PC, and they're calling this the age of the mini PC. So we're currently in the process of testing this unit out to see if this will work for us in replacing all the desktops that we currently have in the lab. Computers, used to worry about having a good processor in the computer, a CPU. Then when people started playing games and doing video editing and things like that, they added a GPU, which is a graphics processor. And now the new computers they're adding, for additional AI capabilities, they're adding a third processor called an NPU, a neural processing unit. And this little guy has all 3 of those. So we're hoping that this is going to work for us. So that's about it. We're testing it out right now.
So even though we were looking for 16 units for the 16 workstations and maybe 1 more for the back room people, the hardware repair people, they're trying this out with 1, making sure it fits, serves all our purposes, and if that works out terrifically, then they'll buy the other 15. If it doesn't work out terrifically, that one will go into the back and we'll buy something else for the other 16. So it's going to be very efficient use of your funds. So not to worry about this. These guys are all over it. I mean, they're in their glory. I mean, let's be honest. They're loving it, okay? Okay. Steve Klein, I want to recognize. Steve, right here. Steve, stand up for a second.
Okay.
Steve has been doing some great work. We've discovered that in the Birch room, the Oak Elm room, this room, the lab, sometimes it's a little squirrely getting all the AV. You might have noticed something right like 8 minutes ago that sometimes it's a little difficult. And Steve has been trying to represent the club and helping other clubs realize that we really should have a common interface with all these AV things. For example, I'm doing the presentation today, but I don't have a lot of confidence that I could use a live Wi-Fi feed to demonstrate some things. And that shouldn't be the case in this day and age. So Steve, out of the blue, said, hey, I'm interested in this, and he's taking care of it. And he's trying to make sure that when the community and the facilities committee and the board gets to a point of trying to approving a revision of the AV facilities in all these rooms, that they have a common interface that everybody could use easily and with confidence, so you don't run into a thing where they have a glitch. And I've always found that when you do a presentation and you have a Wi-Fi glitch that may only take 30 seconds, to the audience it seems like 10 minutes, and the people in charge don't know what they're doing. So you want to avoid that and make this a little bit easier for all clubs to operate in all these venues. So Steve, thanks for following up on it. I also want to give some love to the Coffee and Donuts people who every session seem to run into some kind of glitch. So we have a group of people working together, and they're meeting tomorrow to try and really formulate a procedure for Coffee and Donuts every every month. And I'd like to recognize Judy Droho. Is Judy here? Judy, stand up, please. Thank you. Judy volunteered to be the coordinator. Now, a coordinator is a really important role. A coordinator makes things get done, but it doesn't necessarily do them herself. Okay? So she's the one that, I hope that, 3 or 4 days before each meeting, she'll check that everybody's got their assignments down, that they're still in town, that they're going to be doing that, and then she can sit back and have a cup of coffee and watch everybody do their jobs. So Judy will be taking on this responsibility in January, and she was nice enough to come today, even though she's going on a bus trip to Chicago for Christmas shopping, I think, at 10:15 or so. And I think my wife just joined the group. She's on the bus too, so there we go. All right, but folks, these people come in 7:30 in the morning. They get donuts, they get the creamer, they get the cups, the coffee, they make the things, they clean up. Give them some love, folks. Yeah. Okay. Okay, here's the financial situation, which is healthy. We haven't spent, matter of fact, the computer that Shelley held up, I think we said, well, it might cost $1,200, $1,300, what was it, about $800? Less than $800. So we're going to come in way under the anticipated budget. But it's nice to have that room in case we run into other glitches. But the prices are coming down, and really that's great. So this is the current situation. We only spent $800 so far of the $24,000, but there's plenty to do. And again, you can see right here we have Grafton Food Pantries, $1,200 this year, and we're in fine shape and no outstanding bills, so nothing to worry about. Okay, and welcome back. Okay, you're going to notice something about. I'm going to go into the presentation now. I think. What they don't like me to do is to walk around too much. Apparently, last time I did this, I like to get involved with the crowd, and they said, we're going to cement you behind the podium, keep you in place. So I know my place, I guess. I'm going to point out a couple things about this before I start. I'm an adequate tech guy. I mean, I pretty much take care of my own problems by searching on Google or Apple support or one of the AI services. So, but I'm not a fancy kind of person. So you're noticing that there's a lack of color on the screen. That's because it takes about 2.5 or 3 hours to put one of these presentations together. And as soon as I start messing around with fancy graphics, it goes kaflooey. Now, kaflooey is a special computer term only known to the insiders as, screw this, I'm sick of this. I'm going to keep it simple. Okay, so that's my kaflooey message. The second one is you're going to notice something down here, right there, an anecdote. So a little anecdote down here. And what happened is I used slides from the last presentation I did on September 11th. And this little note was there. And finally, I'll point this out later. I asked ChatGPT to remove all these things down here, mainly because I couldn't find out how to get rid of it. So I asked the AI thing to get rid of it, and it got rid of almost all of them, but a few hung around. And finally, I said, this would be a good example of, is it worth my time and energy for 45 minutes to try to get rid of every single one of these little footnotes? But just leave it as a good example is, you don't have to be perfect. And you don't have to get everything exactly right. It just has to serve your needs. So let's look at that. So I left it there in a couple places. Some places you see it's gone because I figured it out or ChatGPT figured it out. But this is a little annoying going back and forth like this. I'm going to move over. Let's see if this is a little better. I'll try to make sure I'm speaking to the mic. Okay, so last time we did this, I did a thing on ChatGPT as only as an example of an AI application. If by the way I fade away by getting away from the mic, if somebody just raises their hand, I'll make sure I get back into position. So I want to build on what we did last time, and the idea was there was a suggestion of what do we do this month, and I said I'd like to follow up on more expansive uses of these AI applications. And they said, well, you really can't do that because every Christmas, every December, we run a gift-giving ideas session. So we went back and forth a little bit in this, and I said, well, I really want to do gift-giving ideas. I don't want to, that's kind of boring to me anyway. And we said, well, maybe we can combine the two. So I'm going to use AI in a gift-giving mode and gift ideas. And the idea behind this is rather than just present you with, here's a bunch of things that you might consider for gifts, that's kind of like give a man a fish or you teach him to fish. I like to rather not just give you gift ideas, but actually show you how to get specialized gift ideas that may serve your particular needs, okay? So there are clear examples. I want to build on what we explored last time, give some clear examples of everyday uses that I've discovered. You can't mess this up, demos, that when you go to, I'm using ChatGPT, and there's other apps, as you can see, there's Gemini, there's Claude, there's Perplexity, and some specialize in certain characteristics that make them more useful for some things. For example, right now, the whole industry, the whole area is in a big sort out. Let's sort this out. Which is going to be the superior product? Which is going to dominate? And about 3 or 4 weeks ago, or maybe a little longer than that, Google came out with Gemini 3. And Gemini 3 was evaluated as superior to anything else that was currently in the market for general population use. And this put the fear of God into the OpenAI people who created ChatGPT. And because, you know, it's all about getting eyeballs or getting people to use these applications. And it created what they call the code red situation among OpenAI, that you're going to find tons of opportunities to get free use of these products on a trial basis. So for example, while I was doing this presentation, and I'll explain what it'll be obvious in just a minute, I was using it, but I was timing out after about 15 minutes because it uses resources. And they would say, well, you're a freebie, you're a free rider. After 15 minutes, you have to take 24 hours off and come back tomorrow. And finally, I was about to do that, and I was using it a fair amount in the course of this work. And they said, hey, special for you, 1 free month. And then start your subscription on December 29th at $20 a month. So I figured, yeah, sure. So I took 1 free month. Maybe that's not a great idea, someone's shaking their head over there. So anyway, I got my 1 free month, and it worked out great because I used it for all kinds of things. I haven't even paid for it yet. So there's time to experiment. They want you, and they're going to be able to make some deals for you if you like. So after the last session, somebody said, you know, I used it, I got my Medicare notice, they explained it. We're just getting started with these kinds of tools, and it's much more than just getting recipes or other simple things. There's much more available, and I want to explore some of that and lead you into what I think is a remarkable use of it to generate gift ideas. So where is it? Again, now, if I were doing a class, and sometimes I did lectures to 500 or 1,000 students, I would look around the room and say, what's wrong with you people? Isn't anybody taking any notes? So what's wrong with you people? Why isn't anybody taking any notes? I mean, you really should come to these meetings with a notebook and a pen. Honestly, I mean, it just makes sense.
It's on YouTube.
And it'll be on YouTube. I mean, Ken just pointed out, it is posted on YouTube. But when I look at how many views are on YouTube, it's not as many as I think is worthwhile. So just keep that in mind. So you can go to chatgpt.com. I'll show you a sample screen. You can download it. I like to think of it as a friendly librarian who explains things clearly and never gets snarky, never gets frustrated, never gets impatient. All right? And of course, I'll add some safety reminders near the end. So what's happened since September in the last 3 months? There's better service, there's more personalization. That is to say, you can set this up to meet your own needs. So for example, they ask, you can set it up to what kind of tone do you want to get in your responses? Do you want a professional, business-like tone? Do you want a friendly tone? Do you want a humorous tone? These things are just in settings, the same kind of settings you have on your phones when you set these things up. There's images now, there's something, Nano Banana, I don't know if anybody's heard of that, which is a Google product where you can say, just say, give me an image that looks like this, or here's an image, I want you to do this and that with them. These things are kind of new, they're very exciting. You can restore old photographs, and these AI applications will do that for you. And of course, there's document help. Now, clearly, there's tons of helpful videos on YouTube. And I've gotten involved a little bit with one that's called AI for Us 50 Plus. There's a fellow there, he has a very, very slow, clear way of explaining things. When you're watching a video on YouTube that's explaining what is available, you can always stop it. YouTube is free if you're willing to watch 10, 15 seconds of ads every 5 minutes or so. Doesn't cost you anything. And this fellow on AI for Us 50 Plus, or anything like that, if you put in AI instruction for seniors as a search item, you'll come up with a lot of stuff. But I felt that this fellow here at the bottom just had a nice tone, a nice pace, and he was working with people for where you are. That is, he wasn't going into the high level stuff. He was building things slowly. And I would encourage you to do this. And because this is something that's right now is effectively free. And why are you not making you can make your life a whole lot easier by making use of these things. So I'm going to go through a couple examples, maybe a complaint letter. You can summarize documents, articles, medical explanations, which I've used extensively, where you get a medical exam and you get a report, and it shows up on your Northwestern MyChart or whatever service you use, and you say, what does that mean? And you just copy the thing and you paste it into Chat, I'm going to refer to ChatGPT, but it could be any of those ones, Perplexity or Gemini or any of them. You just add it in, just add this file. There's a place to put it, and I'll show you in just a minute. And then it'll give you, say, explain this to me in layman's terms. And the whole thing comes out and you get a great explanation. Photo editing, and the thing that's really cool about it is you can say, I didn't understand this, please explain more. I didn't understand that. You can respond, it's like having a conversation. I didn't get that, could you approach this from a different point of view? You can repeat this time and time again until you're satisfied with an answer. Unless you time out, of course, which then you have to come back the next day. Or maybe you get the free month like I have, which I'm kind of curious about. What's the problem with that?
No problem, it's just, you're stuck in that, and you're stuck in that server at that point.
Oh yeah, okay, so you're stuck with that application. Yeah, and probably I'm not gonna give them my $20 on December 29th, because I'm not finished looking at the other ones to see if it's better to serve my needs. Thank you for that point. So don't just assume that ChatGPT is the way to go. But there'll be tremendous advertising for them because they're so afraid at the advances that Google has made that they're in danger of losing their market position. So therefore, you're going to find a lot of people pushing ChatGPT as the be-all and end-all. And actually, you should explore these other ones. Particularly Google, I think with the Gemini is really worth exploring because they were rated superior. And this is what put the fear into the OpenAI people. Okay, so what's the trick? The trick is to ask a better question. In shape called prompts. So they'll say, "What's your question?" You're prompting. You're asking the application to give you information. So the prompt is the kind of the term for asking the question, and you get better answers. Now, if you're just using this as a search process, you're not really. It's like, it's like using a shotgun to kill a mouse. I mean, you can get far more. So if you're just looking for, let's say, new pots, new cooking pots, well, you're going to get a generic answer. But if you describe the fact that I like to cook, I like to do this kind of stuff, I'm a fan of this, and you give a little bit of background and things of that nature, you'll get far, far superior answers. In other words, the more information you input, the better answers you get as output. And that's the key to prompt. So give a context. And I'm going to give you examples of this. Provide more than simple search. Ask for information. If you're not satisfied with an answer, ask it to repeat it. Request a tone that's right for you. I like casual with a touch of humor, and that's what I get back. They change the language a bit. Some people might say, in a particular setting, they might say, I want a real business format response, because people are just going to take that response and copy and paste it. Try something weird, like you could go, here, explain quantum computing. I'm 80 and not particularly tech savvy, and add a little humor to the response. Well, quantum computing is really, really cool, all right? But you get involved in some really strange stuff that's, as far as the next question, that's way above my pay grade to explain. But it's interesting, and it's going to be revolutionary once they figure this out in the next 4 or 5 years, it looks like. Quantum computing, they have this thing called supercomputers. They found out that sometimes a supercomputer, they usually do things like predict weather way in advance and things of that nature. Sometimes a quantum computer is thousands of times faster than the current supercomputers. Thousands of times faster. So this is a whole new world that's coming probably 4 or 5 years from now. Here's another one that says that this is a little more controversial. This is pretty simple. Explain something maybe. I'm concerned about healthcare. I'm concerned about healthcare policy issues and all the stories about vaccine safety. It's in the news. I grew up in the 50s when polio was a major concern. Clarify the current issues that seem to be controversial. Are policy changes likely? Now you're going to get a response here that's going to be much more vigorous, much more robust than just asking, tell me about vaccines. This is putting it into a context. It says, I'm of a certain age. I remember when I was a kid, I was not allowed to go to a public swimming pool, just out of the fear of polio in the New York area at that time. You all have different experiences with that. Vaccine policy right now is in the news a lot. You can have different ways of looking at it, not going in. But you can really get some great information out of this just by asking the application. And here's what the home page looks like. Now, what's nice about this? When you go to chatgpt.com and they might ask you for a sign-in and password, usually your email and a password, this is the screen that comes up. Now you can see that almost all of them look the same. And what they have done is effectively copied what made Google so appealing to so many people. A very clean screen, nothing terribly complicated. It's not cluttered at all. And over here, I have a couple things on the side of things that I searched for in the past. So XYZ, that was something personal. It was a medical report that I figured I'd share with you. But here's what I did back here. Sometimes we had minutes from a meeting. So sometimes I would take the minutes that somebody wrote up, and I would just feed it into there and say, improve the minutes. And I would get back something that's all formatted and nicely done. You know, how long would it take to get that response? Oh, I don't know, 3 seconds, 4 seconds. Totally formatted into a Word document that's easily editable. And when I did something like that, generally speaking, I would get something back that was almost perfect, that just needed the most minor correction. So here's what I did. Here's follow-up AI presentation. And I'm going to cover all these. Here's a holiday letter request, edit the PowerPoint deck, and tech ideas, gift ideas for seniors. So I'll just give you just a brief overview, and I'll go through these. The follow-up AI presentation is, I took the presentation I gave on September 11th and said, I'm doing this again. Give me a slide deck that follows up on what I just presented. In other words, rather than having me try to invent a whole new series of topics to cover, I said, let's assume that everybody paid attention to my September 11th presentation. Let's make this the next session. And it came back with something that was 70% decent, 70%, But most jobs, as you well know, the hard part is getting started. The hard part is the creation process. So what I ended up having done by doing it this way is that I, first of all, got an external evaluation of, now that you presented this stuff, here's the stuff you should do next time, building on that. And I didn't have to create it from scratch. I got 70% of it already in, and now I just had to work with it. So in other words, it's really important to change things from a creation job into an editing job. Much easier, right? So you can really shortcut a lot of work just by asking it to help you along. So I asked them to say, give me a follow-up AI presentation, and that is the basis for a lot of what we're going to see in the next 5 or 10 minutes. Then I said, let's give an example of a hollow letter request. Edit the PowerPoint deck. Remember when I said I was trying to get rid of this, that little footnotey thing? So I said, geez, I can't figure this out. So I said, hey, here's my slide deck. Take out that thing at the bottom. And it did, except I missed one, I missed a couple. And I figured, screw it. This would be a good example to show that perfection is not the goal, it's utility. Utility is the goal. And then I have this tech idea for seniors, and I think this is going to be quite remarkable. So this is a standard page. What you do is you can type in here, you can touch on the microphone, and you can just speak into it. And even if you make grammatical errors, it understands anyway. It'll understand, it'll interpret it fine. And then once you're ready, you got something here, you can hit this plus button, and you get another screen that comes up and says drop a file in here if you want to. So I could say, edit the minutes in a more professional manner. And then I would hit the plus button, I would take the draft minutes that somebody had sent me, I drop it in there, 3 seconds later it comes back, all formatted, all ready to go. Very simple. And I know there's a lot of hesitation of people trying to do something like this that's new. Just be patient, just try it. Just try it once or twice, and you'll be amazed how easy it is. And it's like riding a bike. Once you get your balance, you're all gangbusters. Then you're free to travel all over the city. So just give yourself a little bit of a break and a little bit of patience with yourself.
Hey, Mike?
Yeah.
That plus, you can also add photos.
Yes. Oh, yeah. This plus, thank you, Jim. This plus is not just for documents. It could be photos. Matter of fact, the plus that I added in there was a slide deck from September 11th and said, give me a follow-up for this. I mean, that plus has a whole, almost anything can be dropped in there. Old photos, you could drop an old photo in there. I have a spectacular photo. Sue, are you here yet? My wife's not here yet. Okay, I have a great photo of my wife in a bikini on an red MGB in 1967. It's a great photo, trust me. But you know, it's been in my wallet for 60 years. So it's a little, I could take that photo, feed it in there, and it'll improve, it'll take out the scratches. The bikini was made during the great cotton shortage of 1967. So,
Hey, Mike,
yeah.
One other thing, I'm amazed that on that screen with all they do, there's no advertising.
Yeah, there's no advertising yet. But the intention was to keep a clean screen because Google was so successful when it started with this. I'm reading. There's a great, if you guys are interested in business history, there's a fabulous podcast series called Acquired, ACQURED, and they do 4-hour podcasts about different companies. They're doing 12 hours about Google. It is unbelievably interesting. Just not because it's technology, just as the way markets work and the way progress goes. And Google kept a very clean screen, which became part of its appeal, that it wasn't cluttered up with all kinds of advertising. And they're following Google's example because Google's been so successful. By the way, it wasn't guaranteed that they're going to be successful. They went through a lot of tough times too. Okay, so let's go from this home screen. So what happened? So I said to her, you can read that. Nice, polite letter to the family others. Okay, and then ChatGPT says, I said, hey, what would you like to be addressed at? I said, you can call me Mike. So it says, hey, sure thing, Mike. Here's a warm, gracious note you can send that sets out the boundaries without ruffling feathers. So they came up with this. 3 seconds later. Now, by the way, we don't have this problem in our family, okay? I'm just using this as an example. Our politics tend to be kind of consistent from person to person. All right? But nonetheless, here's a kind of a formal thing. I want to share this, you know. I love us to set politics aside. Let's focus on good food. So I said, okay, you know, somebody could use that. And I said, you know, it sounds kind of distant with family. So I said, how about something playful, shorter, snappier? Okay, this is just a conversation. That's all I put in. All I put in was, in response to this, was, whoops, where did my thing go? There it is. That's all I did in response. And here's this politics of his own. Let's save our energy, you know, eating pie. You know. So, in other words, you can adjust the tone any way you want for expressing your things. You just tell her what you want her to do. And if you're not happy with this, you could say, oh, put in something about Aunt Edna's strange cranberry sauce thing. And they would put in Aunt Edna's cranberry sauce thing, and you could work that in, and it's done. It's just done. Now, this is a playful example. But, you know, if you're writing something formal, you can really make good use of this kind of stuff. Okay, so safety reminders before we get into the different things. First of all, double check, it's not infallible. Pope's got that covered in some things, but you know, we got double check important information. I don't give them my real sensitive data. If I'm asking about financial things, I don't give them all my information, but I give them a scenario that doesn't give them all the information. It's a guide. It's not an authority yet. It's getting more and more authoritative, but it's still not something you could bet your life on. And just to show you, here's one of those slides where that thing snuck in again. You know, a couple down here. Yeah, that's true. Okay, let's move on. So the takeaways: it's easier, more helpful, and it's actually improved significantly over the last 3 months. Ask it to try, explain it, however you do any one of these things. Try one thing, see what happens. Okay, so how good is it? Well, here's my assignment. Was my assignment for today. My assignment was to create a presentation, a monthly meeting that focused on how I gift ideas. My approach was have ChatGPT do a lot of the work. Right? Even so, it took some time. So I attached it, as I said earlier, and for follow-up, voila, 70% of it was done. Now it's an editing task. But what about the gift ideas that you're all waiting to patiently, without notes in front of you? Back to the home screen. So I'm back to the home screen. I'm going to put something in there. All right, what can I help you with? So I type in. Oh, by the way, the defeated time I created this, and I was away this past weekend. I saw a Wall Street Journal article, and a Wall Street Journal article was on using AI to generate gift ideas. Hey, you know, the universe is spinning in my direction. Here's what the Wall Street Journal columnist said. Now, what do you get for this person? Well, they got plenty of answers. And they tested this against 4 or 5 different applications, you know, Gemini, Perplexity. They also tested this because there are AI shopping functions in Amazon, Target, Walmart, all those. Did I say walnut? You know, one of the greatest radio shows I ever heard is how people mishear lyrics in songs. And one of my favorites was, when a man loves a walnut. Yeah. And it's great. But anyway, Walmart, all those companies, they all have embedded shopping assist. And now it's not as broad-based as these other applications because they're functional for the shopping site. But nonetheless, you know, if you go into Walmart and you say, I need suggestions, you could use something like this even on the Walmart or Amazon site. I think the Amazon site, shopping assistant is called Rufus or something like that. They all have cute names and stuff. Anyway, this is what the Wall Street Journal article was about. They did this and they fed it into about 10 or 15 different shopping functions, applications, and they came back with all kinds of ideas. Some worked better than others. So, but that's just an example. So here's what I input. I'll let you read it for a second. Okay, so here are my choices. Do I mess around for hours and hours going through CNET, various kinds of other places, looking for gift ideas to present to you folks? Or do I ask ChatGPT to do it? And save myself a ton of time. And what did I get back? I got 50 ideas in 5 categories, all sorted into a slide deck, 90% finished and almost ready to go. Here's it. Now, from this point on, through the end of the presentation, there was minimal editing. I made some format changes, I added a couple things. I may have changed a word or two here or there, but for all practical purposes, I would say the next 15 slides are all generated by ChatGPT without any real human input other than what I just expressed as the prompt. And they came out with a title page. They said, here's an explanation of what we're about to do. And they said, okay, here we go. Next 10 slides were almost not changed at all. So they gave me 10 slides. So they put it in 5 categories. One was helpful everyday technology. This is the first of 2 slides. 1 or 2. You can get a nice large button remote. Oh, by the way, this little thing here, that little symbol, that's the mathematical symbol that means approximately. That's approximately. So you can get a big screen digital clock. Might be good for people with diminished eyesight. Landline cone, big numbers. A voice controlled smart speaker is very nice. How about a key finder? How about AirTags so that you don't lose your keys or your wallet or your luggage when you're traveling? Okay. Now, I have to admit, at the end of this was a little bare. I mean, in the sense, I said, could you give me pictures of each of these things and the specific stores where I could find them? And it was able to do that. Okay, the pictures were a little fuzzy, were not great, but the sources of where you could find this at the cheapest price could be a follow-up question. So you can actually say, after seeing this, you can say, where do I find Apple AirTags for the cheapest price? And you could make that a follow-up question and determine where to find it and what the exact cost would be at different vendors. All right, so let's go. Helpful everyday technology. How about nightlight smart plugs? A bedside lamp with USB ports. Boy, if you go to a hotel nowadays and they don't have a bedside lamp with USB ports, people are kind of ticked off. What's wrong with these people? How am I going to charge my stuff? You don't want to. Maybe this one might not be the best thing for some people. But nonetheless, it's a nice idea, And sometimes they have scales that tell you how fit you are by figuring out what your percentage of fat is. I'd be cautious about that. A hand warmer would be nice today. A nice mug warmer for coffee. So these are everyday technology ideas. By the way, keep in mind that all this stuff will be on YouTube in a couple days, and you can go through these just by looking at the presentation on YouTube. All right, so category 2, staying connected. Now, that's a good idea. A video call device, a simple home screen, a tablet with a simple home screen. Basic tablets now are $250, $450. Well, that's kind of pricey, but we'll get the price filtering in a little bit. A a tablet stand, so it's easy to read, so it's not always flat on the table. Something that when you're having your coffee or your tea, it's up at a nice readable angle. That may be nice. How about a clip-on light for video calls? A ring light is a kind of a special light that's circular that takes the shadows out of your faces. So that if you're on a video call with a relative or a family member at a distance, it gives you a nice image and it takes the shadows out. It's used by professionals. And they used to be fairly expensive. Now they're quite inexpensive. That's a clip-on light. Noise canceling or volume canceling boosting headphones. If people have a hearing impairment, you can get headphones to hook into your TV. Or if people are bothering you and there's a dog always barking, you can put on headphones that are noise canceling and it filters out the extraneous noise. So that's the first of staying connected. Here's another one. Gift cards, a family photo frame. We have one of these. A family photo frame. It's kind of nice. The kids get an opportunity to put things on our photo screen that appear to us and say, oh, there's a new picture of so-and-so. Of course, my son's a little weird. He had a picture of his dog driving a car. But that's what floats his boat, and it's pretty good. I mean, the dog was quite expressive, driving the car and crashing into a fire hydrant. It was kind of amusing, but that's another generation and what their interests are. And you can actually preload a USB drive. A nice phone case. Here's an idea: a phone case for family photos. Make sure you know what case fits. A stylus, pen for a small pack. So these are staying connected ideas. Third category: fun and entertainment. If people aren't well connected, you could try this. Maybe a nice e-reader that has easy to read. These buttons are close together. That's what's going on here. A gift card for audiobooks. Simple Bluetooth speaker. When I used to travel, I used to do a lot of overseas travel, and I used to bring a speaker with me. It was only about the size of my fist. Surprisingly good. And no matter where I was, I could always play my music off my phone, or not that I play music that much, or I could listen to a podcast with a better sound system than what comes out of the phone. Maybe I didn't want to use headphones, but a small portable Bluetooth speaker, very, very easy, simple to set up. Any 90-year-old can do it. And then maybe a subscription to a music service. I think it's actually less than this. I think the Amazon Music service is now $6 a month. So that might be a nice thing. Or you could do a large jigsaw puzzle. How about a digital camera, a smartphone, classic games, solitaire, Sudoku, old games that people might remember. I was never a gamer, so I'm not that familiar with this kind of stuff. And then, of course, there's smart TV. Well, how about health, safety, and comfort? All right, maybe a pill organizer. I think everybody in this room sits down once a month and does their pills. All right, that might be nice. Blood pressure monitor, fitness, medical alert device, a light therapy. As we get to those dreary days of February, maybe you need a little vitamin D, sunlight, things like that. Might be a good idea. Here's others: a motion sensor, night lights for hallways. So when you get up in the middle of the night, probably one or two of you do this, and all of a sudden the light goes on in the hallway, so you don't trip over anything. Could be a nice gift. Smart door, a heating pad. I like the idea of an auto shut-off. Nobody wants to burn their house down with a heating pad. Electric blanket, an air purifier. This should be nice. How about grandkids love this too kind of gifts? The family digital, which I kind of recommend. I like it's actually kind of nice. I would recommend that to put this on your list. I'll tell you how to do that in just a minute. I don't do photo printing. I think we have way too many pictures. Every time years ago, every time you snapped a photo, you knew it was going to cost you 30 or 40 cents. Nowadays, people snap 10 shots, and of course, nobody deletes anything. So therefore, it's clogging up everything. But board games, subscriptions to screen, shared puzzle or game subscriptions. Lots of times you can do these things together. And then My grandson just visited him this past weekend. He asked for this for Christmas. He actually asked for this because there are a bunch of guys in the dorm. Very typical. There's 4 20-year-olds sharing 2 bedrooms and a common room. The common room apparently is decorated. The furniture is 4 camping chairs. That's it. This is 4 camping chairs. These are guys, all right? And they said it's really difficult to watch movies on our laptops. So could you get us a projection screen that we could do and put it up against the wall? I said, sure. I said, send me the details about exactly what you want. But that's basically what it is. This is something I bought from one of my grandkids last year. I bought a subscription to, there's a guy, did anybody ever see a guy, Mark, oh, what's his name? Huh? What's his name? Yeah, Mark Rober, R-O-B-E-R. He was a former NASA scientist. Did anybody ever see the Squirrel Olympics? Trust me. Go home, put in Mark Rober, R-O-B-E-R, Squirrel Olympics. You'll be mesmerized for 20 minutes about how he creates an obstacle course for squirrels trying to get at walnuts. It is amazing, amazing. And when you do that, he also has a business where he will send a kit every month to mainly an 8 to 12-year-old, and it's a construction kit, and it teaches engineering principles like lever arms and actions and springs and all kinds of interesting stuff that the kids get once a month. And I thought, since I had 2 grandkids in Arlington Heights, they're both interested in Science Olympiad, they both compete in that. The oldest one just got first prize. That's okay, hold your course. He's not here, but I got to make sure I didn't get over his skis on this. But you know, these STEM toys, they're out there, they're educational, and I found that both of the boys really loved them. They really found it interesting. And then they started watching more of Mark Rober, who has a very, very personal manner, very welcoming, and he's ideal for young people who have an interest in science and technology. A backup drive. So you get the drift. So you just saw 50 ideas. Now, the takeaway in this is that if you think some of these are interesting, when this goes up on YouTube, you go back and look through this. So let's go forward though. How do you get the right gift? You know, you really want to match the gift. You just don't go out and say, oh, I need Christmas presents, or you know, I'll just get it, whatever. No, you're always thinking, oh, what can I get? What can I get? Well, simpler is better. Sometimes the setup is more fun and with simple instructions, but watch out for this, subscriptions and batteries and ink and ongoing costs. You don't want to give a gift and then say, and by the way, in 3 months, you're going to get a bill for $15 a month for the rest of your life. So try to avoid those. Okay. So let's take those ideas. So if you looked at that and say, you know, some of those were expensive and some of those were inexpensive. By the way, I haven't done anything yet. This is all coming out of AI. I'm not doing this. I mean, I'm doing it in the sense I'm editing it and I'm ordering it and stuff like that. And I put some bold there so you can see it a little more easily. But basically, it says, now let's sort all these things by price level. You know? So I got a nephew I see once a year at Christmas. He's getting some for $25 less. I'm not spending that. He doesn't even say thank you. Okay? But hey, you know, I got a kid that could use something like this, and you know, so this is all categorized by the presentation that was given to me to work with. All right, so I get an email, the family gets an email sometime after Christmas that, hey Dad, what would you like for Christmas? Well, at my advanced age, pretty much anything I really want within reason, you know, I've managed to get. Yeah, so, you know, and people say, oh, it's so hard to buy for grandma or grandpa, and I don't know. Yeah. You know, and it takes a little of the joy out of it when they look at this as an obligation. So over the course of time, we've developed, hey, would you send us some gift ideas? Send us some things you think you might like. I said, oh, yeah, that's reasonable. Because actually, for those of you who have an interest in economics, they found out that almost all Christmas presents are only valued at 60% of their real value. In other words, if you buy a present for $100, the value to the person who's getting it is only about $60, because people are not choosing it themselves. You know, there's a little bit of dissatisfaction that comes along with that. Or they would say, oh, gee, I'd like to return this, but I don't want to hurt their feelings by returning this thing that I'm never going to use. And it goes beyond ugly Christmas sweaters. I mean, it goes into other stuff too. Like, do I really need a coffee cup warmer? That's what I got a microwave for. You know, to heat up the coffee. So, I mean, there's a lot of discounting. So getting a gift that matches the interest of the person who's getting the gift is really a very efficient way to use your funds, use your resources. So I said, I was stumped, because how many years can they buy chocolate pretzels that I really like, or a nice bottle of scotch or something, or a couple other things that are on my list. At one point, I used to say, just make a contribution to Heifer International, which is where they buy barnyard animals for poor people, who then they can have a better life. You know, those kinds of things. You know, but people generally don't like to do that. I've given a cow in your name. I've given 10 chickens in your name. You know, it doesn't really fit Christmas morning, right before the French toast. You know, so you gotta. So they wanted better ideas. So this is what I put in. This is me saying this. I'm Mike, dead grandpa. I have a couple names. Okay, now I'm not going to give you the answers because it was filled with bourbon and scotch, but of a very specific type. I said, here's a bourbon that's much more expensive than normal. It's about $90 a bottle. Okay. Here's a scotch. I don't like the Lafroig and those really peaty scotches, but I like some of the, there's one there, Glenmorangie, that has kind of a sherry cask finish, but it's kind of smooth and nice. And you know, not that I'm doing this every night. Actually, when you retire, sometimes you do it too often. You gotta say, hey, I'm drinking too much at 5 o'clock. But you know, usually it's Sunday afternoon, you know, hopefully watching the Bears go down. Yeah, but anyway, that's a long history for that. But it's just, you know, a social thing. So I'm not going to share the entire list, but they suggested a pickleball paddle, which kind of that was not a great idea, because that's something that's more of a personal selection. But they had a variety of other things. I say I got about 15 suggestions of what this person might like, from which I selected 5 or 6, put it on my Christmas list among the chocolate pretzels and the other things, and sent it off to my children and said, yeah, this is something, here's some ideas for me. You can do that for yourself. Hey, Mom, what do you want? Oh, I don't know. Well, why don't you know? Well, ask them to help you figure out what you like, give a good description of what you do, and you'll come to the suggestion. Here's some final thoughts. Tech gifts, if you have a focus of bringing people together, they're probably more appreciated. Because it's not just the tech gift itself, it's the sentiment that I want to stay in touch with you. That's the gift. It's not the item. It's the outreach. It's the connection. That's the gift. Okay? It makes life easier, safer. Now, when I say make life easier, it's amazing how I think these kinds of applications do make your life significantly easier, or can. And why not do it? You know, I was getting service on my Toyota. They said, "Hey, do you want the next 5 services, $370, pay in advance, $480 value?" I said, next 5 services over 2 years, yeah, I'll probably be around. I wonder if it's a good deal. So I asked ChatGPT. I said, "Is this a good deal?" He says, "Yeah, it's probably a pretty good deal." You know, you just go along with it. In other words, while I was waiting in the room for the car to get the oil change, I checked out their offer and got an opinion that, yeah, this is probably a decent deal. So I took it. You know, we'll see what happens. Will this help us stay in touch? That's a winner. Personalize the prompt. The more information you put in about the proposed recipient, the better information you get back. Used to be garbage in, garbage out, good information in, good information out. That's the way it works. And the best gift may be the time spending together, learning how to use something. You know, I mean, sometimes, you know, you allow your young children to teach you something and say, oh, gee, thanks for helping me. And sometimes they do know something you don't know, and that's great too. And that's what builds generational contact and generational appreciation. And sometimes, you know, the old quote from Mark Twain was he couldn't believe how much smarter his father got from the time Mark Twain was 20 until Mark Twain turned 30. Well, they just realized later on in life that you know a lot more than they thought you knew, particularly when they're 15. At 15, you don't know anything. You're good. But over time, they come to appreciate it. I mean, I had some really interesting lines. I was visiting my grandson in California. He goes to a really great college, tremendous resources. But I was watching the interaction of my son and daughter-in-law with my grandson. Talk about deja vu. Like, hey, Jack, why don't you do this? And I'm sitting there watching, oh, you didn't listen to that advice when I gave it. Now I'm watching Jack not listening to his parents. It's really quite amusing. I mean, it's really awesome. But you don't point that out, except over a drink. You say, you know, that was kind of fun. Okay, that's it. Questions, comments, and I got one more thing after this.
Well, I got some questions. Okay, I got
Let
one.
me just make one minute. So your takeaway is, go home, go to the ChatGPT, try it out, and a couple of these things, and I think you'll find it interesting. No?
No questions?
Right.
Got somebody here. Got one?
I have a comment. One thing that I think you should try is, and I've done this, because I've used Microsoft's Copilot pretty extensively in some of my computer repairs and finding answers to problems. And then some of my 3D printing and other things. So I had to generate a slideshow one time for me after I did my 3D printing. And it was about generate a slideshow on 3D printing. And it included all these printers that it knew that I had. I thought, oh, I didn't know that it knew I had all those printers. So I asked it, I said, what do you know about me? That was a shock. Everything that and that's why I won't put it in my medical stuff here. Because I don't want it to know, you know, any kind of medical condition I've got. Because it'll remember everything.
Yeah, this is where caution, that's why I say protect your personal information. It's always, by the way, I think what he found out about these applications, about knowing about you, I think everybody knows way more about all of us in all things. Every click you make on a computer is basically recorded somewhere. So if you're doing something and it's not, here's the old mantra from tech developers. If you're using something that appears to be a free service, you are the product. In other words, they are watching you. If you're getting it for free, it's not free. They're collecting information about your habits and things like that. So you are the product. And right now, I think pretty much everybody's life is pretty much an open book. I use private search a lot. Hopefully that works. I use the Safari browser. And I say, sometimes I turn on private browsing. Not that I'm going to weird places, but just sometimes you just don't want to put too much information in. So be cautious about that. Yes, sir.
Just wondering, all your searches for gifts for children, etc. You ever get a response that says, just give them money, go buy what they want?
Well, I didn't get that response automatically, but sometimes I've done that. I have bailed out of buying birthday presents. I say, give them $100, call it good. My lovely wife disagrees with that, So therefore, she has a responsibility. I said, now my default is give them money. Her default is buy them a gift. If you want to buy them a gift, fine, but if you don't have a gift on the day before, we're giving them money. So I mean, it's a matter of who's got this job. Yeah, but I agree with you.
How does chat verify the accuracy of the information?
Well, you know, they have a vested interest in being accurate because if they're not accurate and somebody else is more accurate, they're going to lose market share. So they have a vested interest, but I would say that I would not trust them with legal advice without going consulting people, or sometimes some medical advice I would want to check out. And that's where I say, don't take this as an authority. Take it as a guide to ask them good questions if it's something that's really important to your life.
Just FYI, that was a question that chat generated after hearing a presentation on ChatGPT.
Okay. Anyone else?
Any other questions back here? Okay, I just want to make one comment. If everybody wants to take an easy approach at trying something about AI, go and look at how many here have Google's photo on their computer. Google Photos, about half of you. If you go in there and look on the bottom of this, where it's just bring it up, and one of the things on the bottom, it'll say, you want to create a picture. It'll say, if you bring a picture in, just click on one picture, no matter what picture you do. It'll say, edit, a few other things. And then one of the different words that'll be down the bottom will be create. So you click on that, and you'll see a bunch of little boxes pop up. One of them says, AIs will take a picture and convert it for you into Christmas t-shirts, funny Christmas t-shirts. It is amazing program. You take a picture of, say, your husband and wife, and we stand together or sitting down, it makes no difference. Just click on a picture, drag, and drop it in the box. And within 30 seconds, you'll have a picture that you won't believe. They'll be all dressed up in a Christmas gimmick with t-shirts on, or sweatshirts, you know, with all kinds of junk on them, and they really look good. You won't believe it, so.
All right. Thanks, Greg. Okay, one last thing is having president of the club since June. And, you know, life goes on and there are different circumstances. So this will be my last meeting as president. And Ken Zarinsky is going to take over. He's in the back and he's going to do a great job. That's one of those things, you know, life circumstances come along and you have priorities and other things like that. But it's been an enjoyable time to work with this group. And I think you have great potential and it's an important service for the community. And I think as much as you believe in this club as, it's a little different than most clubs. It's a service organization, and I think it does a great job for the community, and I know that the new leadership will do a great job as well. So thanks very much. It's been a fun run. Thank you. And that's an adjournment too.